Okay, good evening. My name is John Chory. I'm currently the Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee for the town of Harwich. I'd like to call to order our meeting tonight of October 15th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. In our agenda, which was posted, the revised agenda, there's the first statement above the call to order. It reads, I'll read it. It says, for the next several meetings, the Finance Committee will be discussing and possibly voting on the fiscal 2021 annual town meeting warrants and budgets. We will not be discussing that tonight for obvious reasons. Okay, the meeting's been called to order. The second item on our agenda is election of new committee member offices. We'll start with the chairman's role, so I'd entertain a motion for the nomination of the new chairman for the Finance Committee.
I'd like to move that we nominate John Chory for the position of chairman of the Finance Committee.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, hearing no discussion, I'd like to take a vote on that. And all those in favor of John Chory being elected chairman of the Finance Committee, please signify by saying yes. Dan?
Aye.
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 Okay, and there's no one online from the Finance Committee to vote, so motion passes 5-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I look forward to, trying the best I can for the town of Harwich. And I know I've spoken to numerous members on the board, and I have their support that they'll help me in that endeavor. Second position is Vice Chairman of the committee. I'd like to entertain a motion for Vice Chairman of the committee.
I would like to move that Brian Werner become the Vice Chairman of the committee.
Is there a second? Second?
I'll
second that.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, I move the motion that Brian Weiner be elected Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee. All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next officer for election is the town clerk, is the Finance Committee clerk. I'd like to entertain a motion for the town for finance clerk.
I nominate Dale Kennedy for the position.
I second.
Second, okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Dale Kennedy will be our new clerk. Congratulations to both Dale and to Brian for your appointments there.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and it also, it was a very important component of our meetings is the recording of the minutes. And traditionally in the past, we've had a couple years ago a recording secretary. We haven't had one for a couple years. Dana and myself kept meetings, minutes, and did that task. Brian Weiner has done an excellent job of recording the minutes. I don't think anyone's recorded them better than Brian. And I have discussed this with Brian, and he's willing to continue in that role of taking the minutes. I just want to thank Brian for that. And it's not a...
Happy to do it.
Okay, I really appreciate it. Really, it's important not only, for us to get the minutes. It's required by open town meeting law, but it also informs the town populace and citizens of what we're doing as a committee. And we'll talk about that later with some of the agenda items. It's very important, the education and informing of town citizens. Also into that role there of minute taking, further on we're going to have some agenda items on how we can better communicate that to the town. And I've spoken with Dan Torak about electing him or eliciting his help in helping us getting our goals and objectives printed and posted we'll talk about how we get them posted, but in any other, we don't set policy as a board, but to set, some of our ideas and discussions for the town citizens. And I want to thank Dan for that offer that he made to that. Dan, would you like to elaborate any more on that, or?
Oh, sure, yes. We have been busy with getting last year's town warrant finalized and ready for town meeting, and we devoted all of our energies to that whole process. And I think now that we've got that behind us, I'd like to concentrate on defining to the community who we are, what we do, what our responsibilities are, what our role is, what our mission is. I mean, I can go on. And put that down in writing and share it with members and get their input and work towards developing a document that we can put on our website that defines and presents all that.
And I agree wholeheartedly that, I think, again, we'll talk about it further on with some of our agenda items, the education piece, but thank you, Dan, for doing that. Okay, agenda item number 3, Finance Committee goal, these are our goals and objectives for fiscal year 2022. And we don't have any right now because I was waiting to hear from the selectmen on what their goals and objectives are. According to our town charter, the budget is the responsibility of the selectmen. And so we need to listen to what their goals and objectives are to formulate ours to be in unison with theirs. And so once we hear what those are, they have discussed them. They are available on last week's packet that the selectmen looks at, and but they have not voted on them yet. So we'll wait to hear from that before we formulate our old goals and objectives. But they'll be in line with what the selectmen desire for the budget.
John, so my suggestion would be, given the statement that the Selectmen's Budget Committee, or that the Selectmen provided on the budget to the members of the town residents, I think it would be worthwhile for us as a committee to begin to look at some of the things that you've brought up and others have brought up. One is all the unpaid taxes that are sitting out there that are worthy of collection, that were they to come to the town coffers would clearly benefit this process. And secondarily, there are lots of items that were passed at prior town meetings that have never, the funds were allocated and never utilized. And so if those funds are in fact in limbo and not going to be used, then it makes sense also to return them to the budget so that this provides a buffer for the selectmen and for residents for their own taxation purposes. So for a lot of reasons, I think these issues go hand in hand with running a conservative, careful budget for the coming year.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, and I'll speak a little bit to that a little bit later on in one of the agenda items. But also, along with the goals and objectives of the selectmen, they had some other budget message. You alluded to, they did pass at the selectmen's meeting on Tuesday night, the Harwich, the selectmen's, I guess it's the town's citizens' message to the citizens of the town. That was passed. We have it in front of us, and we've all looked at it, and I'm sure it'll probably align with their goals and objectives when their goals and objectives get published. But it basically says that the selectmen mandate a budget that is at most 2% higher than the fiscal year 2021, with a starting point of a level funded budget. I'm not going to go through the whole pages here because there's a lot of points, individual points, but that was passed and adopted by the selectmen as a message to the town's people. Also part of that, the town administrator, he's also a key component to the budget process. He has goals and objectives too that was going to be adopted by the selectmen. That, I'm not sure if even they were received by the selectmen yet, but they have not voted on them yet, the town administrator's budget, because we should definitely align ourselves with his message, too. And to the town administrator's goals and objectives, on October 20th, I'm going to be meeting with the town administrator just to have a general discussion on some of the things that Brian just alluded to. You know, some of the items that I've talked about in the past of uncollected property taxes, approved but not spent warrant articles, and a few other items too. I don't want to get into them right now, but I want to run them by the town administrator and let him aware of some of the thoughts that I've been thinking about, and not only me, but other members on the committee who I've heard over the years talk about certain items. We've talked about, Angela will, I think, mention it later, we've talked about indirect costs to departments and fees. That was discussed a little bit at the selectmen's meeting on Tuesday night. It's also mentioned in their budget message to the town. One of the line items to the town citizens was, to help efficiently manage department budgets, we suggest the allocation of indirect costs to each department. It is necessary to review total department costs, including those that are carried by other departments. The intent is to provide a better understanding of total costs to operate each department. And I've been on the committee for 4 years, and we've talked about this for 4 years. And I really haven't seen any firm action taken on that, Dan.
Have the selectmen come up with a definition as what they mean by indirect costs?
Angela, do you, I mean,
No, I have no idea what they
Yeah.
what they were talking about.
well, well, I'll take a stab at it. I think, relying from my corporate world experience, an indirect cost, this is an example, is when we see the folks mowing the grass on all the ball fields around the town. Now, obviously, those are recreational fees. The people mowing the grass are DPW, Parks and Recreation Department, which is carried under the DPW budget. Should that be a recreation?
See, now, I would not consider that indirect cost.
Yeah.
Those are allocable costs. You can allocate those costs to a department that's receiving the services, but they are not indirect costs.
I concur.
Okay.
And that's from an accounting perspective. Dale, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I was saying that the costs that they're talking about, which the selectman is referring to as indirect costs, are actually direct costs to, let's say in this case, the recreation department, but certain costs should be allocated to the department that's receiving the service, and that's not an indirect cost, that's an allocable cost. Indirect costs are those costs that can't be directly charged to a department, like the finance department. That's not,
Right, that's my understanding as well, as indirect costs are generally things that aren't directly attributable to that department, but a general allocation of
so,
overhead.
anyhow, I was getting confused when I was listening to the
Well, yes,
conversation.
yeah, because I know, for instance, the water department is an enterprise fund.
Yep.
The finance department does charge them for their services.
Yep.
That's right.
And so that's an indirect cost there then?
That's correct.
That is charged, yeah.
It should be the finance department, whatever personnel costs, whatever other kind of indirect costs that could be charged to that cost center.
I think where the confusion is, and let's look at the recreation department for a moment, and
Okay.
DPW, only because it's
It seems to be the
it's
biggest
the
one.
easiest one to discuss.
Yeah.
So the recreation department needs to have the beaches cleaned, et cetera. The DPW does it. The DPW, the way we're organized, has the budget to do that.
Mhm.
Okay. I think what we need to do is to put together financial information that says for the Recreation Department, what their costs are, because the DPW thing has a cost. And also, in addition to that, whenever the town does its budgets on departments, the people who work in the departments, their salaries are not included, because that's in the selectmen's budget. Their health benefits aren't included, on and on and on. So I think we need to have an understanding of what's going on, a financial document. I know 5, 6 years ago, that was done, that kind of document was done quarterly. So if, actually for the year as a target, and then quarterly, so you knew where you were going. Then you could say, yes, it costs us as a town $1 million to take care of the beaches, because you have a way of putting everything together. And I think we need to have that. And I don't think that's an indirect cost, it's a direct cost.
I agree, because if the DPW didn't have the beach cleaning equipment, the rec committee would have to go to a third
right.
party and contract them to do it.
That's right. And that's just an easy one to find, but that happens on a ton of things. And it's probably a good way of doing it.
I agree, and that's one of the things, discussion I'd like to have start with the town administrator, I think, to see what his understanding too of that is. And on that October 20 meeting, I've asked Brian to attend it with me. It's just to have a discussion on some of the thoughts we've collectively had as a committee, to see if they're in line with his thoughts and the selectmen's thoughts, and then take it from there.
Can I just add something to
Yep.
what I just said? A department like the rec department, and other departments set fees.
Right.
And there are rules about fees.
Mhm.
One rule is that you can't overcharge the fee, because you're not supposed to make a profit on it. So that would be good for us to have the cost of the activity. And also, when you're trying to set the fees, you might have a different fee depending on what the cost is. The total cost, not just for one department.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, that, again, was talked about in the selectmen's meeting on Tuesday. And we'll bring it up again with the town administrator and see what the best approach to that is.
They coupled my name to indirect costs several times, and I didn't appreciate it because it wasn't anything I had wanted to do or say. I'm glad we're going in a different direction.
Yep. Okay, so that's the finance goals and objectives. The fourth agenda item is getting information relative to town finances on the Finance Committee's website for town citizens. And I think we've all looked at our town, at our Financial Committee's website, and there isn't any information on there, you know. So I have talked with Mark, who isn't here tonight, who is in IT and is very familiar with our town's websites and things like that. He's going to speak with Foster, our town IT person, and Jamie, just to see how we can best utilize the town's website there and get information once we decide what information we put on there. I'd ideally like to have a page of statements, so to speak, and then short answers as to where that statement stands. Like the two we've mentioned tonight, the uncollected property taxes in town, I'd like that to be listed there, and what steps we're taking to collect, not only listed there, but a dollar amount of what that number actually is and what we're doing to collect those taxes. Status of approved warrant articles but unspent, to try to better utilize the monies in those things. Dan?
Before we got into heavy duty into the preparation for the town meeting, we were getting quarterly financial reports from Carol. You know, your typical government town financial report where you got the previous budget, the current budget, and current expenditures and percentages and that kind of thing. And I think it's something that we should be getting on a routine basis.
And this is,
And they can I mean, Carol can easily just pull it off of her Munis system, so.
and this is information of what the town approved budget by department.
By department.
Yep.
And what their expenses have been
Yep.
so far against that town budget there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure that the town administrator and Carol are looking at that stuff, but you know, we're the finance committee, we should know what's going on also.
Okay, I don't think I had that on my list for Joe. I'd have to check my list of Joe lists. It's pretty long, but I will definitely put that on the list, Dan, because I think it's also a good thing there, too.
And just an afterthought that if we do begin to get that on a quarterly basis, and if we do decide to post it on our website, then perhaps we could provide some commentary, some very common language to explain to the town citizens what this all means.
I agree, yeah. It's definitely a new endeavor for the Finance Committee to get this information on our web site. So it will definitely be a work in progress, at least for a little bit here, but.
Which, by the way, after I finished my comments earlier on, it just struck me that with your permission, John, and with everybody else's permission, I'd like to begin working on an outline that will define our roles, responsibilities, and all that kind of stuff. Rough outline, let you folks look at it, and then we can talk about it.
Excellent idea. I don't need to take a vote, but we can just get a head nod from folks. It's a good idea. I think that's a good idea, Dan. And thank you thank you very much for doing that. It's
Let me know if you find a job description for the clerk.
Yeah.
It's this long.
So thank you. On the website thing too, if people can resend me the best telephone number to get a hold of you and the best email address to get a hold of you currently now. And on the email thought, would folks like to get and I'm going to find out from who I have to find out from, on a town town email address assigned to us. You know, I wouldn't mind having a town's email address assigned to me. I do not want to put my own personal email on there. If folks are amenable to that, we could get one for each of us if we wanted to.
Sure.
And, you know, I don't see any reason that way. It's because I have a couple people have stopped me in Shaw's and said, I've seen you on TV, I saw you at town meeting. You know, how can I talk to you? You know, what's the best way to talk to you? And so in that particular case, I did give them my phone number. But, so would folks be amenable to having a town email address?
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll see what we need to do that. The selectmen have one, I know, so I don't know what the procedure is. I'll find out and make that happen. That's the town website. And I'd like to keep it to a page, maybe 2 pages. It's been my experience, anything much longer, people's attention, they don't like to read long things, but bullet items with quick, what the issue is, what the financial status of that issue is, and what's being done to remedy that financial status of the thing. And it's quick budget items that I think it would be good. And it's a work in progress, and we'll just see how it goes. Agenda item number 5 is, okay, now how can we better educate and inform town citizens on financial matters. And I've thought about that. I've talked with some folks on that. I'd like to cut this, and these are just thoughts on my thoughts. I'd like to hear your thoughts next. Is invite folks in here that we know have an active interest in town finances. There is a group out there called Concerned Taxpayers of Harwich, or Concerned Harwich Taxpayers. It's a group of men and women that meet and discuss financial matters of the town. We heard one gentleman, Gary Conroy at town meeting got up and spoke about the growth of town's budget and headcount over the last 3-4 years. He is an active member of that group, and I have spoken to the group, and they're a good group of folks, and they've been amenable to come in or Zoom in with us and tell us what their concerns are. I think it's important that we hear from groups like that or any other citizens in town. I have spoken to a woman in town, Chris Joyce, who runs some educational segments. Used to do it in person, meet your local department heads when we could meet in person. She ran, and then she always does at town meeting time a session, and this year she did it again on the town budget and the town warrant articles, and invites the appropriate people in to speak to them. I've spoken with her. I haven't met her. I met her at town meeting. We talked briefly. We're going to get together next week and see how we can best utilize her resources to educate the townspeople. Whether that means going on to Channel 18 at some point and having topics and have the appropriate person to come in and speak to those topics. And willing to do anything we can to better educate. Because I want to go into town meeting with a group of town folks that are well educated and speak at town meeting, and I think we can. I want to do that. I think it's a good way to do that. We did it, I think, this year for the first time since I've been on the committee, that we actually got all our votes, I think, pretty much recorded for the town warrants in the meeting. In past years, sometimes we missed a few warrants with our town votes. I want to go to town meeting with all our votes recorded before, as best we can. This year, with the COVID and stuff, we were a little delayed in getting some information from certain departments, but I think it's important that we let the people know where we stand early on. And to that thing there, well, before I go on to the next item that ties directly to that is, if folks have any other thoughts and ideas on how to educate people, please let me know.
It's going to be a work in progress, John.
Yes, oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't start off, yeah. It's just how we do it, it's, I think it's, we can just make our attempt, And one other item that the selectmen have not voted on yet, but I did pass out, the town administrator, Joe Powers, shared it with me with the caveat that it is just a draft right now, is the budget warrant article timeline for this coming season. I mean, usually after a town meeting, we have a period of 4 or 5 months of inactivity. Well, I think we had 2 weeks of inactivity. And then we're pretty much right back at it. And you have the town budget warrant article timeline in front of you. Again, it's a work in progress. It's draft. It has not been adopted by the selectmen yet. But it gives us some indication and key dates that by some of these dates, I believe, Angela, if you want to correct me, is by town charter, too. I think we have to meet certain these dates by town charter. So that's in front of you. Once it gets approved, then we can start doing our part according to the town budget warrant article timeline. In all reality, we really don't have a lot of time. We have about 6 months before we have town meeting again. So,
Well, we have a pressing date potentially of October the 26th,
yes,
so.
it's on the draft, but again, it's not been approved yet.
Right.
So you're right, to your point, yeah. And that's in 2 weeks.
Correct.
Roughly, a little less than 2 weeks.
Yep.
And that's tying together, some big departments there. A joint meeting with the Cape Tech, Capital Outlay, Finance Committee, Bottom-Moyd Regional High School District, and the Board of Selectmen. So that's a tough 4 or 5 groups to try to get together and see what the message is. So we'll wait for the selectmen's guidance on that.
Do we know what the objective of that meeting is?
Maybe Angelo can
I
elaborate
don't
that?
remember.
It's Monday, October 26, 2020, and it's the 5 big committees in town. I don't know if it's budget, policy, direction, the selectmen reiterating what they had to the citizens' dale or not. That's the only information I have is what I see on the
Aye.
budget timeline.
I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, okay.
You
So
know,
it'll probably be in the selectmen's agenda items for this coming Monday. They have to, along with their goals and objectives and the town administrator's goals and objectives. And that's something we can ask them, Brian, on when we meet on the
Yep.
20th.
I don't think departments would be ready at that time.
No.
to
Can't imagine.
do anything.
Right.
One other question I find interesting. I think, obviously, the people need to know exactly where the various departments stand. For example, if you think at a town meeting, quite often, let's see, waterways, waterways, water department, golf, basically cover their own costs.
Mm-hmm.
And the town people should know that, because you get a different opinion of what they're presenting at that time
Mhm.
afterwards. So I think we should make sure that they know when and if we get the department budgets together, we make sure that we publish them somehow.
Yep.
Either in the website or hang it on the wall down here,
Mm-hmm.
so that the company, the group you talked about doing financial stuff, I doubt that they really know how each of the departments work.
Or to the selectmen's citizens' budget directive, a better understanding of the total cost to operate each department.
Yeah.
And,
I think that's it. Okay.
because for me, that means the total costs, and that means salary, wages, and benefits, and everything else, the debt, the principal and interest, that it's for that particular department that's being, yes, I agree wholeheartly.
Sorry.
Okay, nope, that's all, I think, just trying to get your folks' opinions and thoughts on what we should be doing in the next coming years. And these are things that have been bugging me for a couple years of trying to get these things nailed down. I definitely would like to hear from all you folks on any other thoughts and objectives that you feel that we should be covering in our message to the town.
Yeah, I have a thought, John. As we went through the warrant articles this past year,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like we lacked a lot of information, and we were kind of hurried. We discussed them briefly, voted on them, and I feel like we could do a better job of getting the person who is representing each individual article
Mm-hmm.
to join us for a meeting. And maybe we do 2 or 3 or 4 during a meeting, and just understand the thinking behind the article, and have an opportunity to ask questions so that we can give a more well-informed vote when we decide on whether we
Yeah.
approve an article or,
Good idea.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%, Dale, yeah. I've done that in the past on a couple articles that I didn't really understand, is met with the individual requester. Yes, I agree, and especially in like CPC articles, I don't know the exact time frame on when they take applications, when they decide, but it's pretty quickly. I think their application process closes the end of October.
October 30th.
Quoted on that,
Yeah.
but,
That's
oh,
when,
that's right.
that's when applications are due. Used to be October 1st, and they pushed it ahead to October 30th.
And that's when they close it.
Close the
for
application process, yeah.
Right. And then how long does it usually take to deliberate by the CPC?
Well, it has to be, I'm trying to think, no, it has to be ready, I think, let me think now. It's got to be ready for, to be published in the town warrant.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is, for some reason,
Town warrant.
February 1st seems to stick in my mind as an absolute drop dead date. But I could be wrong.
Well, that's one thing that we can find out, yeah. My point is that once we know that the CPC has approved their application, we should get those folks in, to Dale's point, right away.
They're, once they get the applications in, they pretty much move on reviewing the applications and voting.
Yeah, that's what my understanding was. They did it
Yeah.
fairly quickly. Yeah.
Yes, they do, yeah.
So that, I don't see any delay for us to at least be better informed and I don't know if it's appropriate to vote on them at that point, but at least be better informed, to Dale's point there. And,
Can I
Yes.
add to that suggestion? The
Yeah.
Capital Outlay Committee usually gets in a bus and rides past all the activities that are being presented. Either one or all of us, or, probably one or two people, should try and go with them.
yeah.
So, and you get a good view of that article.
okay, why don't, I'll put that on our list, because it says in the outline, interim town manager, October 27th, Capital Outlay Committee presents capital plan to interim town manager. And I'll speak with Joe on our meeting to see when, I do remember that, I've never been on the bus ride, but I do remember one year they had a boat ride, I think. John brought people out to see the jetty at Allen's Harbor or something
Yeah,
like that.
that's right. And one other thing, two of us from this department,
That's
from
right,
this
yeah,
unit, right now it's you and me,
okay.
okay? If we want to change that, we should think about it.
Yes, that's right,
Are on the CPC,
okay.
okay?
Yes, Dan?
On a different topic,
Okay.
I'm just curious as to whether the town has any properties that are classified as pilots, payment in lieu of taxes,
Any properties, or
properties, yeah.
what do you have?
In other words, an organization
You mean a nonprofit?
that
That doesn't pay
could be a
property?
nonprofit, could
Yeah.
be whatever.
Yeah.
They don't pay real estate taxes.
Correct.
But they benefit from town services.
Oh, sure, yeah. All the
So-
churches, for instance, yeah.
So all the churches are assessed a pilot?
No, I think a pilot is voluntarily, it's voluntary, it's not mandatory.
Oh, well, that's not where I come from, but.
Oh, okay. Angela, any,
I'm not familiar with that.
I
Okay, it could be something,
can check with Joe on that, yeah. I thought in this town that it was that payment in lieu of taxes
right,
was a voluntary. It wasn't an assessment. We don't say, okay, Mr. Nonprofit, you don't pay property taxes.
Yeah.
We're gonna assess you X. I don't think, I'll find out, yeah.
okay. I was just curious, because in New York, I mean, it was a fairly common practice.
Was it a percentage, or what was it, any idea what it was based on?
I don't recall,
Okay.
some kind of a formula.
Yeah, I don't know if it's mandatory or voluntary. Okay. That's a good question, yeah. There is a lot of nonprofit, tax-exempt property in this town. I don't, I have a list, but I don't remember the number. Do you remember the number, Brian? by any
No,
chance?
that's
Those
significant.
like thrift shops and that kind of thing? 'Cause there's a lot of those.
There's a lot of nonprofit, either nonprofit or state, like Hawks Nest, for instance. You know, that huge undeveloped tract of land in East Harwich, a state preserve, so to speak. It's hundreds of acres. They don't pay any taxes on that. The federal government owns property in town, houses that they do not pay any taxes on. For federal employees that live in the town, don't pay taxes on. The list is, I don't want to say a number, but I do, it's a big number, yeah.
John, why don't you, let me do some research on Massachusetts general municipal law, see if I see anything there. Because there must be something in statute that,
Because I think we do accept some things here in town, payment in lieu of tax. Like, in the town I used to live in, Southborough, we had two big private schools there, St. Mark's and Fay Academy. And every year at town meeting, it was voted to accept from those two schools $10,000 for payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay.
But it wasn't assessed by the town.
okay, we negotiated.
Yeah, it was just arbitrary. I mean,
Well, don't take it too far, because I wouldn't want that to get out there and say, well, the finance committee's looking at
well, yeah,
taxing
no,
nonprofits.
But I think for informational purposes, it'd be good to know if it's mandatory or
Let
voluntary.
me do some research.
Yeah, okay.
Dan, I have a database that I got from the assessor's office. Do you want me to send you a copy of that?
Sure,
That might be
might be something there.
someplace to start.
Yeah,
So any ideas like that? One item in the selectmen's budget notice to the town citizens was they wanted to identify other funding sources in the town. If we can think of any other funding sources there. I have some thoughts on it. I'm not going to say them right now, but if you want to have thoughts on that, let me know, you know. Yeah. Okay. Last item on our agenda is, last item on the agenda is, with our committee, we have seven members. We're down 2 members.
Yep.
If anyone knows of anyone that's interested in, now that I've been elected chairman, I'll send a note to Mr. Ford. There is a procedure in our town charter on the filling of the vacancies on our committee. I will follow those procedures and send Mr. Ford a request that he help us fill these, because as we all know, it's appointed by the moderator in town. And to see if he has someone that has a desire to be on the committee, or what we can do to get someone on our committee. You know, I've been on the committee 4 years. We may have had 9 members at one time briefly, but I really don't remember a full staff of 9 members. And I'd like to get us up to 9 members. I'd like us to, if possible, get some women interested in our committee. I think it would help us get some different thoughts and opinions. So if anyone knows of anyone out there, please, you know what's involved in the committee. You do not, in my opinion, do not have to be an accountant or a CFO. It definitely helps, but you do not have to be an accountant or CFO. I am not either of those two. But I did manage big budgets in the company I work for. But yeah, I'd like to get us up to, I don't even know if we can legally run an ad in the paper. I mean, I'll find that out, you know.
now that would mean that if we were interested in contacting somebody, we would have to actually contact them see what kind of background they have and whether they would have an interest. So is that appropriate?
Oh, sure, yeah, I would think
Okay.
so. Angela, I mean, you're gonna be
Sure.
like my conscience on this
I
board
know.
here.
I'm sorry. Yes, but one thing you can do is every meeting we have, you can either start it or end it with the need for two.
Oh, I plan to.
Two people and what they should be looking at and what the job would be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just, there's a procedure in the town, you fill out an application,
Right.
stating your background,
Yes.
send it to Mr. Ford, he evaluates it and then makes a recommendation going forward, so, yeah, I'm asking everybody that I know that if they're interested. So, and it'd be very helpful if you folks can reach out to folks too. The last item is kind of the catch-all old business or any other thoughts? Yes?
So I'd like to propose or make a motion that the members of the committee send a note of appreciation off to Dana DaCosta, because I feel that he stepped in at a critical moment, did a wonderful job. I certainly feel I benefited from his presence, and I felt like he got us through a very difficult year, and then, of course, stepped aside for personal reasons. But I think it would be appropriate and very nice if the members of the committee would agree to send him just a note of appreciation, and so I'd like to move that if you don't mind.
Sure, no, I think it's an excellent idea, Brian, yeah.
Second.
Yep, good idea.
Any further
Great.
discussion on that?
Maybe he could take the money he collected for the water.
Yeah,
and buy him
that's
something.
I was just gonna say, we already, we gave him his compensation already, but.
I'd be I'd be happy to provide a draft to everyone to
Sure.
consider, and if you guys like it, we'll just send off a note and send I just think he did a really great job. He stepped
Good.
up and was a
Yes.
great leader, was very, very helpful. For me, as a new member, I found him really helpful.
Yep, a lot of knowledge, good guy.
Yeah.
Yep,
Well, exactly, Dale. He helped me, guide me in financial committee matters and stuff like that. He's a tremendous resource, being a former selectman, finance committee members, other committees he's been on. I think he's really like an unofficial town historian, too.
He is.
Of what the town of Harwich really represents to him. And, yeah, he did step in at a very critical time in a very short time frame, too.
in a
of,
tough year. And the value of his institutional knowledge with your institutional knowledge was extraordinarily effective in getting us through a tough year. So he stepped aside, and I really would like to
Nope.
have the committee express our appreciation. So if that works, maybe somebody could second it and we could vote it.
Sure. I think
It's
somebody did.
It's been seconded, yeah.
Okay.
Is any further discussion on Brian putting together some type of recognition, letter of appreciation to Dana? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Very good idea, Brian, yeah. It's and Dana has expressed to me that if I have any questions or anything else that he feel that he can help me with, that he'd be happy to help me.
Probably want to.
Brian, just a comment that, appreciate your putting together something, but I, in all likelihood, will take that and I'll personalize it, so
Oh,
that,
great.
so that it
Go
doesn't look like.
go crazy. If you want to write it, I have no problem. I just want to make sure we get it done. I'm always happy to
Yeah, no,
to
you
do
can-
anything that would move
I
it
got
forward.
my assignment.
Great.
No, I think that's great.
I'll share it with everybody. I'll draft something and
Okay.
share it with everybody.
We should make a copy, or send a copy to the selectmen.
Oh,
Okay,
agreed.
sure.
Good idea.
Yeah. So I just,
Looks like
is
it's done.
any other old business or anything else we want to discuss? I'll, after our meeting with Mr. Power, Mr. Powers, the town administrator, I'll let folks know what came out of that meeting. And one thing, I want to make sure that we do as a committee is that we work in unison with Joe and with the selectmen, and that we know what we're supposed to do. And I sent you that, the town, that 164 pages on what a financial committee responsible. We have a lot of responsibility and a lot of investigative powers as a committee authorized by
Yes, we do.
by the state to do. And we can request information and get information from various folks in a timely manner, but I don't want to, I want to make sure we do it in unison with Joe, so he's fully aware of what we're doing. And the selectmen also of what we're doing. I think it works better if we all work together.
Yep.
So, if there's nothing else to be discussed, entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, and that
Thank you.
concludes
This
our-
conference is no longer being recorded.
Oh.